The RX-7 is a sports car legend, and here are some things you need to know about it. In the 90s, Japan was creating some of the best sports cars anyone had ever seen. The RX-7 was dropped straight into war. The third generation FD Mazda RX-7 is part of the Holy Trinity, the big three of the 90s JDM tuner sports cars, along with the Nissan R34 GTR and the Toyota Supra MK4. Almost 30 years have passed. Nissan and Toyota have still been making these cars, but there's never been a successor to the FD Mazda RX-7. So in my opinion, that makes the FD RX-7 the rarest and most desirable of the big three. This RX-7 was a standout sports car. It made sure to separate itself from the competition. Yet its biggest strength is what led to its early demise. I'll get more into that later in this video. Because while the competition was certainly tough, the RX-7 managed to emerge as an all-time favorite. Well, mine at least. This RX-7 was the last car in the US to have a rotary engine. Its 1.3 liter rotary engine put out 255 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. But it definitely, and I stress definitely, made more power than advertised. It utilized the world's first mass-produced sequentially turbocharged engine. In plain English, the two engines work separately in steps, rather than pushing more air in the engine together. The first turbo kicks in at 1800 RPM, and the second turbo takes over at 4000 RPMs. The competition certainly had more power, but they were also larger and heavier. The RX-7 was the lightest and most agile of the bunch. The perfect example of everything you want and nothing you don't in a sports car. Offering an exceptional driving experience with no additional gadgets, which at the end of the day just add weight. And it was arguably, of course, prettier than the competition. It boasted an insanely clean design, which included pop-up headlights. One of the greatest cars ever produced, the RX-7 features stunning and timeless look, along with an insanely brave and unique power plant. Mazda's rotary engine was so successful that it later led them to be the only Japanese car to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans with their four-rotor. It is undoubtedly one of the best cars that will ever leave Japan, and has earned a huge following worldwide, making it a serious collector's item for the future. And undoubtedly one of the first cars to pop up in conversation when enthusiasts speak about 90s legends. It's the sheer number of boxes that the RX-7 ticked, which have deservedly made it one of the most iconic cars in the history books. For years, Mazda's 1.3 liter sequentially turbocharged rotary engine has gotten a bad rep, mostly because of overzealous lunatics with their hardware store boost controllers and a failure to grasp air-to-fuel ratios. As it turns out though, the world's first mass-produced sequentially turbocharged engine is a special one, and is definitely something that shouldn't go unappreciated. The twin turbocharged 13B REW rotary engine that you think is a temperamental turd of a time bomb because the internet says so, just might actually be something very special. It's RX-7's suspension and chassis that epitomizes its finesse though. The RX-7 is certainly more fun than a new car. You can feel everything. The steering is heavy and responsive. The throttle is immediate, and the ride is stiff but communicative. However, when throwing the RX-7 into a corner, you can certainly feel it roll. It's fast, but not as fast as modern day cars. It is almost 30 years old. There are just so many reasons to love this car, like the fact that the exhaust can blow fire stock. Rotary engines have notoriously hot exhausts, which is the reason why the internet is full of backfiring RX-7s. To let you know when you've taken it a bit too far, the RX-7 has a temperature sensor on the exhaust that switches on the hot exhaust light on the center console that lets you know you're ready for a cool down lap. Japanese sports car interiors of the 90s are famous for being driver oriented, and the RX-7 is no exception. Everything inside is geared towards the driver, while the passenger can't control much more than their air vent or their window. In this case, the distinctive curved dash of Japanese cars is even more distinct, making you feel like you're in a plane's cockpit. This interior really solidifies the driving experience. To avoid inconvenience and add more storage to the RX-7, Mazda has opted for more storage, including a lock-in bin instead of rear seats. Deep enough to be useful while offering space for storage on top of them. This is a great design that could even be implemented on new sports cars. Carrying on with the storage space theme, the trunk of the vehicle is more spacious than you'd think. It's actually quite large, and the rear seats fold to make it very accommodating. The RX-7 is certainly more practical than you'd expect. Another fun fact is that the pop-up headlights can be popped up without turning on the headlights. In fact, if it wasn't such a rare occurrence, it's kind of an unwritten rule that this is the way that RX-7 drivers greet each other on the road. And as of the case of most great cars that came out of Japan in the 90s, the FD RX-7 is definitely appreciating in value. As it is one of the most sought after JDM cars ever made, there's so much to love about the Mazda RX-7 FD. The RX-7 was only available for 3 years in the USA, 1993, 94, and 95. The RX-7 just wasn't appreciated right away, and declining sales eventually led to its demise. US sales for 1995 show an abysmal 500 RX-7s were sold. In 1993, the first year the car was available in the US, it was honored as Import Car of the Year by Motor Trend. They wrote, I quote, "The RX-7 redefines road manners for its class. The handling feels nimble and natural, balanced with a good measure of stability. No sports car in its price range delivers the same level of sensory gratification for the enthusiast driver." This is why it was named Import Car of the Year. This car is said to be ahead of its time, with ultra-modern looks, responsive handling, and a suspension and chassis that promoted a low center of gravity. The USA might not have been completely ready for the RX-7 when it hit the shores. This automotive classic has been impressing since Mazda first introduced the rotary motor in 1978. And now that it's firmly seated at the forefront of Mazda history, I'm happy to pay testament to this unique piece of JDM history. The FD RX-7 is an absolute legend and easily one of the best cars to come out of Japan, and one of the best cars the world has ever seen. This is my personally favorite Japanese car, and I fell in love with it in 1993. Hopefully you guys liked this video and took a second to like and subscribe and even drop a comment. Let me know your favorite JDM car, or what car you think I should review next. Watch all my videos, put my playlist on rotations, and don't miss my live streams. And if you're really trying to support, share my content and shoot me some pictures in my merch. Yes, I have merch. There's a link on top of my YouTube. We got shirts, socks, hats, slides, everything you need to be faster on Forza. Thank you guys for watching. You know I love you guys. Join the stream and the team. Adios, amigos.